Usually we expect that our horror stories will take place in a haunted mansion or a cemetery covered in fog. However, some of the scariest tales in the modern era started with a simple phone call. You all undoubtedly remember the movie scenario where a young, defenseless woman is left alone at home and receives a call from an unknown caller who is most likely her killer. And the call would come from within the house, if the writer was in a particularly creative mood. But what if we told you that these things don't just happen in the movies? There are actually several real-life incidents where people have disappeared or were even killed as a result of threatening and disturbing phone calls. Similar to this scenario is the story of Dale Williams. But before we jump in, some of the details in these stories are disturbing and may not be suitable for all audiences, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. As always, remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications to stay up to date with the channel. All right, let's dive into the calls.
Nobody's been ruled out as a suspect in this case.
May 27th, 1999, Dale was last seen in Nucla, Colorado.
My roommate happened to tell me they had called our house asking if my dad had been there.
The citizens want answers just as much as anybody else.
A pickup truck was found in the murky water when a family was swimming on a Sunday in Montrose County, Colorado, on July 4th, 1999. The sheriff's department attended the scene. This wasn't just any truck. This was Dale Williams's truck. Weeks ago, Dale, Nucla's lifeblood and the man who made everyone smile, disappeared without a trace. His disappearance had left a trail of unsolved questions and a persistent feeling of dread in the little Colorado town, casting a long, unsettling shadow. Dale Williams was an involved member of the community, a loving husband, and the loving father of 2 teenage children. The car body shop, Dale's Pro Body Shop, in Nucla, Colorado, was owned and run by him. He was not home for dinner on the evening of May 27, 1999. Diana, his wife of 23 years, thought he was distracted with his work at the body shop and had forgotten the time. She made a few calls to Dale's shop, but he never picked up or returned her calls. She assumed that he was using the air ratchets or some other noisy instrument, which is why he did not hear the phone ring. She went to bed at around 10 o'clock. She sensed something wasn't right as she lay there. When Diana woke up in the morning, she was shocked to learn that Dale had not returned home during the night. She drove directly to his garage after dropping their kids off at school. She saw that the door was unlocked when she initially entered his store. He had his tools lying around it. He left for only a few minutes and would return. She went right away to his mother Ida's home. She had also not heard from him in the past day. Dale frequently visited junkyards to find replacement parts for the body shop. Given that his daughter was scheduled to graduate that weekend, his family was aware that something was off. Word of Dale's strange disappearance spread around Nucla within a few hours after Diana alerted the authorities. Investigators started assembling his day. They discovered that on May 27th, at approximately 12:15 p.m., he stopped briefly by his buddy Tammy Lawrence's workplace. She had a truck that needed its windshield fixed. Dale informed her that he would have to wait until Wednesday of the next week to fix it. She thought it was strange because he didn't need to stop by and tell her that. He could have called her instead. But it wasn't just the urgency of Dale's visit to Tammy that was unusual. It was what happened next that puzzled everyone. Dale was rushing. He informed Tammy that he was headed to assist a driver who had become stranded, and she never saw him again after he left her office. She is thought to have been among the last people to see him. Investigators found that just before Tammy saw him, he was with his buddy, Pastor Tom Ross. Dale had replaced the church van's windshield when Tom and his little son visited the repair shop late that morning. They were playing darts when someone called. The caller informed Dale that they had broken down around 3/4 of a mile east of a little countryside shop in Bedrock, Colorado, on a desolate section of the roadway. Tom assumed the caller was a lady. There was nothing that was actually said that confirmed this. According to Tom, it was just the way Dale spoke. Additionally, Tom thought the caller was panicking and not alone. Dale was initially scheduled to deliver the tow truck, but the caller rejected it, stating that they only required a small amount of assistance, such as a jump. Dale was not a mechanic, so it was strange for him to receive this call. Tom did point out that Dale was the kind of person who would go out and help someone if they were having a hard time. Tom and his son bid Dale farewell at the shop door shortly after the call. He never saw Dale again after that. The people of Nucla wanted to help find Dale. His friends and family made posters that said he was missing and put them up everywhere. Diana put some posters in the post office, but they disappeared. She put more up, but those disappeared too. The police thought someone was taking down the posters on purpose, so they secretly put a camera in the post office. The camera showed a man taking down the posters. Surprisingly, the man was an old friend of Dale and Diana. The police talked to the man, but he said he didn't have anything to do with Dale's disappearance. He also said where he was on the day Dale went missing, and the police mostly believed him. But maybe the man was angry at Dale. A year before Dale disappeared, he and Diana helped the man's ex-wife move away without telling him where she went. The man was very angry about this. A month later, Dale found some torn-up pictures outside his shop. The pictures showed him and Diana with some friends. There were also some small bullets on the ground. A few days later, Diana found a small gun in the drop box at her video store. The gun and the pictures were stolen from Dale's shop. Diana was scared because she didn't know why someone would do this. Dale told her not to worry, and that someone was just trying to scare him. The police talked to the man about the stolen things, but he said he didn't do it. It seemed like the past had settled, but sometimes the quiet before the storm is the most deceiving. Things seemed to go back to normal for Dale. But then, a year after his shop was broken into, he suddenly vanished. 6 weeks later, a shocking discovery was made. His white truck was found submerged in a river. The spot where the truck was found was near a dirt road in a canyon. The river had likely been flooded, hiding the truck. When they examined the truck, investigators noticed several strange things. The engine was still running and the truck was in low gear, as if someone was trying to slow it down. The truck had to have been driven sharply off the road and into the river. Tire tracks showed that the truck slowly rolled down a hill before plunging into the water. All of this pointed to someone deliberately driving the truck into the river. Nothing about the truck's discovery seemed accidental. Someone wanted it there. But why? Dale's wife, Diana, noticed that the truck's window was only halfway down, which was unusual for him. She believed someone else had driven the truck and then tried to hide it. Inside the truck, there was a lot of dirt and trash, suggesting it had been in the river for a long time. A toolbox that was attached to the truck was missing, but parts of it were found later. Divers searched the river and nearby abandoned mines, but they couldn't find any sign of Dale. The police still don't know who the person was that Dale went to help. Pastor Tom thought the caller was a woman, but we don't know for sure. And, strangely, this person has never come forward to explain what happened. The police might know something about this because they think the call was made from a stolen phone. This is another confusing thing for Dale's family. Some people say they saw his truck parked at his shop around 1:30 p.m. on the day he disappeared. If this is true, then someone drove his truck back to town very quickly after he left to help the person on the road. Some people also said they saw Dale at a store in a nearby town later that evening. Dale's friend Tammy believes the people who saw Dale at the store were telling the truth. These people are known for being honest in the community. So what happened to Dale? Where is he now? Diana thinks Dale might have seen or known something he wasn't supposed to, and she thinks someone wanted to keep him quiet, so they might have hurt him to stop him from talking to the police. Although this case remains unsolved, the police think the person who called Dale for help might be involved in his disappearance. They believe the caller was a woman, and she might not have been alone. The caller said their car broke down on a lonely road near a small store in Bedrock. Dale probably didn't know this person. Later that day, people saw Dale near Bedrock, looking at a car with the hood up. This car might belong to the person who called him. There was a rumor that this friend started building something a few days after Dale disappeared, but no one could prove this to be true. Another case related to disturbing phone calls is the case of Henry McCabe. One of the most perplexing unresolved instances is the 2015 disappearance and death of Henry McCabe in Minnesota. Investigators and the public are baffled by the enigmatic circumstances surrounding his death, as well as the unsettling voicemail he left before going missing.
But very little actual talking. Authorities confirmed the disturbing middle-of-the-night call came from Henry McCabe's cell phone. It was Labor Day, September 7th at 2:28 in the morning. McCabe's worried wife heard the message.
Henry McCabe celebrated Labor Day with friends on the evening of September 6, 2015. The group drank and celebrated the holiday at a bar during the evening. William Kennedy, Henry's friend who would be the last to see him alive, had been with him all day earlier that day. William left Henry off at a Super America convenience store shortly after 2 in the morning, which was close to the club where they had spent the previous evening, while another companion had Henry's wallet. William had his keys. William subsequently clarified that he kept the keys to stop Henry from driving home while intoxicated, although it is assumed that they were all intended to meet up again. As a result, Henry had neither identification nor keys to his house when he got to the convenience shop. Thus, he had no practical means of returning home. Corinne McCabe, Henry's wife, was in California that evening. The couple had been married for 11 years and shared 2 children, a 1-year-old and a 10-year-old. When Corinne woke up the following morning, she discovered that her husband had left a message at 2:28 a.m. The message, which consists almost completely of incomprehensible sounds, including growls and moans, for 2 minutes in a row, seemed to have been accidentally recorded on a pocket phone. She had never heard a message like this before. A sound that sounded like someone coughing or gasping for air was heard near the end of the message. The line then stopped working. This voicemail, which raised more concerns than it did answers, became a key piece of evidence in McCabe's disappearance. What would have made McCabe produce those eerie noises? Was he in danger? Or was he in distress? Or drunk? The precise nature of the noises is still unknown. An extensive search was initiated in the days that followed McCabe's disappearance. McCabe's family, volunteers, and local law police searched the area surrounding Fridley for any indication of him. Despite these intensive attempts, no immediate hints as to his location were discovered. Hope started to wane as the days stretched into weeks. Nothing specific came to light, despite repeated public requests for information from McCabe's family, especially his wife. When questioned, his buddies denied knowing anything about what might have transpired after they dropped him off. Nearly 2 months after going missing, Henry McCabe's body was discovered in Rush Lake in New Brighton, Minnesota, on November 2, 2015. The gas station where McCabe was last seen is roughly 6 miles from the lake. Law enforcement swiftly responded at the site when a kayaker found him dead. Although an autopsy was conducted, the findings were largely inconclusive. Although there were no obvious indications of violence or foul play, the medical examiner concluded that drowning was the cause of death. There were no visible wounds on McCabe's body that would indicate an assault or forced entry into the water. Alcohol use was noted in toxicology results, although it was not immediately apparent how it contributed to his demise. How did he get to Rush Lake, which is kilometers from where he was last seen? Was there a more sinister reason for his death, or was it an unfortunate accident? Some theories, each with its own set of difficulties and unresolved issues, have been put out to explain McCabe's unexplained death. None of the theories, including accidental drowning, malicious play, and even animal attacks, can adequately account for either the unsettling voicemail or the dearth of evidence to support them. Some have turned to more speculative, supernatural theories because of the uncanny quality of the voicemail and the lack of hard proof. Even if these explanations are extremely unlikely, they nevertheless capture the urgency of people looking for answers in. The death of Henry McCabe serves as a reminder that, despite improvements in technology and investigative methods, some mysteries can nevertheless remain unsolved. His friends and family are still looking for answers, but the case is still open. While seemingly disparate, there's another case that shares a chilling commonality: a sudden, inexplicable disappearance, followed by a frustrating lack of concrete evidence. And that's the case of 20-year-old Angela Hammond.
Tonight, detectives are hoping an old piece of evidence can generate new leads in a cold case. 30 years ago, a young woman vanished in Clinton, Missouri. Someone kidnapped Angela Hammond April 4th, 1991.
Angela Hammond was a well-liked young lady from Clinton, Missouri. She attended Central Missouri State University and worked at a bank. Rob Schaefer, an athlete who expected to join the military, became her fiancé in January 1991. After a barbecue, she dropped him off at his house at around 10 p.m. on April 4th, 1991. He was watching his sibling at the time, so they planned to meet when his mother got home from work. Angela and her friend Kyla spent some time together. 7 streets from Rob's house near the junction of Jefferson and 2nd Street, she made a call to him at 11:15 p.m. using a payphone. She was talking to him when she saw a suspicious-looking man drive a green Ford pickup vehicle around the block multiple times. Then he came up next to her. After using the phone outside, the man returned to his truck. In search of something, he pulled out a flashlight and blinked it around his van. While all of this is happening, Angela describes the man's appearance and truck to Rob. She then asked him if he needed to use the phone. He replied that he would try the other one again in a minute. She and Rob then returned to their conversation. And then just a few seconds later, Rob heard Angela scream. Then, the man calmly said,
"I didn't need to use the phone anyway."
Rob was instantly thrown into a panic. He dropped his phone and rushed outside to his car. He sped towards the payphone, desperate to help Angela. As the abductor's truck raced past him in the opposite direction, he heard Angela's desperate cries for help. In a desperate attempt to pursue the truck, Rob abruptly reversed his car, unknowingly causing severe damage to the transmission in the process. He managed to follow the truck for 2 miles before the damaged transmission finally gave out during a sharp right turn. The truck then disappeared from sight and was never seen again. The search for Angela and her kidnapper, a man in a truck, began immediately. The Missouri State Highway Patrol investigated numerous trucks matching the description, but none matched the suspect. With limited leads, investigators began to scrutinize Rob's story. Initially, no one could confirm his account of the events. However, a lie detector test indicated that Rob was being truthful. A breakthrough came when 2 witnesses emerged, claiming to have seen a truck and a suspicious person near the payphones between 11:30 and 11:45 p.m., the approximate time of Angela's disappearance. Within a week, Rob was cleared of any wrongdoing. The abduction of Angela was chillingly linked to 2 other unsolved cases within a 100-mile radius. In January 1991, Trudy Darby, a 42-year-old convenience store worker near Max Creek, Missouri, called her son to report a suspicious man loitering outside. Before her son could reach the store, Trudy vanished. Her body was discovered 2 days later, bearing the marks of a brutal rape and 2 gunshot wounds to the head. 70 miles away in Nevada, Missouri, another convenience store worker, 30-year-old Cheryl Kenny, disappeared after locking up her store on February 27th. Her abandoned car was found in the parking lot, suggesting she had been abducted. These unsettling similarities to Angela's case, occurring within a short time frame, raised serious concerns about a potential serial offender targeting female convenience store workers in the region. The police are concerned that a serial killer might be operating in West Central Missouri. They believe that both Angela and Cheryl are likely dead, but there have been unverified reports of Angela being seen in various states and more recently in Canada. Strange, right? Now imagine the pain a parent would feel when you get a call from your legally blind kid telling you to find him as he has lost his way home, and then you suddenly get to hear him scream and never find him again. Yes, that's what happened with Brandon Swanson's parents. Before we continue on, if you are enjoying the story so far, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments. Your support truly means everything. All right, back to the video. After partying, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson was driving home early on May 14, 2008, when he was involved in a minor mishap. He needed his parents to come get him because his car was in the ditch, but he was unharmed as he would soon inform them over the phone. He found it difficult to provide them with precise directions and was, as it turned out, around 25 miles from his location. He started to walk toward what he believed to be the city of Lind. Brandon left his glasses behind, even though he was legally blind in one eye. He was on the phone with his parents for almost an hour when he suddenly said, "Oh, shit," and then went silent. He was never heard from or seen again. What happened to Brandon Swanson? Let's do a quick background rundown of what exactly happened on that day. Brandon celebrated the end of the spring semester by attending 2 parties on the evening of May 13, 2008. Although he was spotted drinking at both parties, his buddies claimed that he didn't consume enough alcohol to become extremely drunk. Brandon knew the route he took to get to Marshall from the Canby gathering. He had traveled the same path along Minnesota State Highway 68 to get to class each day. He took the back roads instead of the freeway, though, for some reason. Brandon abruptly went off the road and into a ditch when he got to the 3,900 block of Lyon Lincoln Road. On the morning of May 14th at around 2 in the morning, he called his parents on his cell phone to let them know that he had basically high-centered the car. He told them he just needed to be picked up and that he and the car were all right. He informed his parents that the lights he saw in the distance were coming from the city of Lind, which he thought he was close to. To find him, they drove to the region. To communicate with one another, Brandon and his parents had decided to turn their headlights on and off. However, tension increased after multiple unsuccessful attempts to find Brandon in this manner. Brandon was also worried, and he kept on asking his parents, "Yeah, don't you see me?" In the end, Brandon made a different decision. He requested his parents to meet him in the parking lot of a well-known nightclub in Lind, and he began to stroll through a field toward the lights. Brandon suddenly cried out, "Oh shit!" 47 minutes into the call. Then there was silence. But that wasn't the end of the call. As Brian and Annette waited in distress for their kid to explain what was wrong, there was just an unsettling silence. However, he never did. They hung up, unsure of what else to do, and called him several times more without receiving an answer. There would never be another sight or sound of Brandon Swanson. At 6:30 a.m. that morning, Brian and Annette Swanson filed a missing persons report for their son. Their worries were initially dismissed by the local police, who claimed that a young man of his age staying out all night was not out of the ordinary. Deputies told them to wait patiently for him to come back by himself. After acquiring Brandon's cell phone data, the police found that contrary to what he had told his parents, he had been close to Porter on the night of his disappearance, some 25 miles away. His vehicle was found in a ditch close to Taunton shortly after that. According to Lyon County Sheriff Eric Wallen, Brandon's phone was operational late into the following day, and officers kept attempting to call it and receiving his voicemail. When the search did start, it was a massive operation that involved air surveillance, skilled search dogs, and hundreds of volunteers. Because some of the search and rescue staff believed Brandon might have slipped into the stream and died, search efforts were conducted on land as well as in the Yellow Medicine River. His scent was picked up by search dogs on a route close to the river. The track abruptly ended when they followed the scent to the water and then to the opposite side of the river, suggesting that Brandon might have been in the water. They then proceeded north along the riverside toward the Yellow Medicine County line. Near Mud Creek, north of Porter, the search dogs also detected the scent of human remains on a couple of occasions. But nothing relevant to the case was ever found there. Investigators had also excavated the river extensively. Teams were still searching for Brandon's remains in the soil as late as 2021. It's interesting to note that although the dog teams detected Brandon's scent on a piece of neighboring farm equipment, the owner of the item refused to allow authorities to examine his land. At this point, Emergency Support Services Ken Anderson recognized that several promising regions were inaccessible for search due to several complex legal disputes involving landowner authorization. For example, local cow farmers opposed police search dogs being on their land. Investigators were still struggling with the same dilemma 14 years later. So what happened to Brandon? It's important to remember that Brandon Swanson had problems with depth perception because he was legally blind in his left eye due to an eye injury sustained as a child. For some reason, he left his glasses in his car the night before he disappeared, even though he needed to use them for this condition. Authorities have looked into the possibility that Brandon might have fallen into one of the several unregistered cisterns in the vicinity. Furthermore, it was slightly below 40 degrees that evening, so it's possible that Brandon passed out from the cold, particularly if he went into the river. His parents insisted that their son sounded quite clear, albeit worried, when they called him, even though he had been drinking that evening. In 2023, Sheriff Wallen said that tips continue to come in. He claimed that within the past 12 months, fresh information about Brandon's disappearance and the circumstances surrounding it has been provided to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Sheriff's Office. Among these were rumors from third parties that Brandon got into a fight with someone close to when he was last seen. Unfortunately, none of the suggestions proved to be true. Similar to this case is our last case of today, and that is of a small kid named Joanne Peterson. On May 17, 1972, Joanne Maria Peterson, the youngest of 3 daughters, was born in Canada to Leo and Angela. Joanne, often known as JoJo by her family and friends, was a shy yet nice child who loved lending a hand to others. Her mother was given full custody of the girls following their divorce, and the court granted Angela's request to deny their father visitation privileges. But even in those early years, there were signs that life for Joanne would not follow an ordinary path. As a result of their many moves, Joanne had to change schools 6 times in 5 years. In Vetter Crossing, Chilliwack, Canada, the Pedersons resided in a townhouse complex in 1983. What happened next would send shockwaves through their quiet community, leaving behind unanswered questions and sleepless nights. Joanne got into a fight with her sister Louise on February 19, 1983, while they were walking home, along with a cousin. Joanne didn't make it home in time because Louise and their cousin sprinted ahead of her. Perhaps as a practical joke, the doors were locked when she arrived. Joanne's stepfather and mother were gone for a Chilliwack Legion birthday celebration. Joanne went down to Penny Pincher's because she didn't want to be kept outside till they returned home. After all, it was raining. At about 8:20 p.m., she left the store for a short while before returning outside and calling her mother on the payphone. Joanne was seen in the phone booth with an unidentified mustachioed man who appeared to be in his 20s or 30s. But when Angela got to Penny Pincher's a little later, she was shocked to see that neither her daughter nor the man she had spoken to were there. Angela reported her daughter missing after failing to locate her anywhere. The RCMP used teams of volunteers, police enforcement, and dogs to conduct a thorough search of the region. There were no hints of foul play or any trace of the missing girl. Actually, nothing that could explain what had happened to her was discovered. Although other witnesses claimed to have seen Joanne and the unidentified man together, none of them reported seeing them leave. It was as if Joanne had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a trail of painful mysteries. Nobody seemed to be able to explain what transpired between the short 15 to 20 minutes that passed between the end of the call and Angela's arrival to pick up her daughter. Sergeant David Ayers reports that on March 5th, Joanne's grandmother, Mary Riley, received a worrisome call. She heard a male voice say,
Listen to this.
And then she heard a child wailing as she picked up the phone. Police considered this to be solid proof that the missing girl might still be alive, because Mary's phone was unlisted, and Joanne was among the few individuals who knew it. However, they couldn't track down the call or figure out who made it. Unfortunately, the lead that might have led to Joanne's location was unsuccessful. The RCMP conducted a thorough search using dogs, airplanes, kayaks, and by foot, but they were unable to locate anything. They requested that people inspect their backyards, garages, and barns. Joanne's family thought she had been kidnapped and was positive she hadn't fled. According to her sister, Joanne was weak and reliant on other people. Leo, her father, begged the kidnapper to let her go and talked about how difficult it was to maintain contact after he and Angela were divorced. And so, with heavy hearts and unanswered questions, the Pedersons faced the unthinkable: a life without Joanne. Unfortunately, no answers were found, and the search was canceled on March 1st. The investigation of Joanne's disappearance is still pending. No significant changes have been made, although police are still investigating tips. The town has been tormented by the case for many years. John Daly, a former crime reporter, said the story was devastating and reminiscent of a movie. What happened to Joanne is still unknown, and she has never been located. These are just a few of the chilling cases where disturbing phone calls were the last known contact before someone vanished without a trace. These stories highlight the terrifying reality that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places, even within the safety of our own homes. Want to delve deeper into these unsettling mysteries and more? Subscribe to our channel for weekly updates on unsolved disappearances, true crime investigations, and chilling tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. Let's continue to unravel the mysteries of the unknown and bring justice to those who have been lost.